This week in lab, it will be your task to learn all of the bones and parts of bones on page 33 and 34 of your lab manual, and to learn the articulations, and to complete your Nearpod activity, and to take your quiz about DNA, which is the material you learned last week. That's all. Not much. Okay, it's a lot, right? But let's get going. Now, as you are working your way through all of the videos, then keep in mind that you're not just watching them, but that this is your first chance at learning the material. Also, keep in mind that almost all of these pages here have got images of bones for you to look at and to label. Those are things that will help you use your textbook. And there's one other resource that you can use. Oh, should have had this set up. But if you go into Connect, just go here into McGraw-Hill Connect, and you go into your, it doesn't matter, either one of your courses. Let's go here into Lab. I want to show you something. So do you see this cadaver skull right here? I don't know, are you seeing that here? Let me use red. All right, here, cadaver skull, right? If you go to that cadaver skull, it actually takes you to a dissection. So we're going to the dissection. Yay! All right. So there are different things we can do. So here we go to select the module, and you're going to be using skeletal. Okay, skeletal. And once you're here in skeletal, you can do different things, but I would recommend that we just use the dissection, and the dissection looks like a little scapula. Great. So now that we're here, it wants us to select a topic, and we are doing arms and legs, so there's no need for us to look at all of this stuff about the skull, right? Let's go here to the pectoral girdle, shoulder and arm, and we want to look at it from the front or from the back. Let's look at it from the back. Boom, here you go, okay? Now, if you click here, no. If you want to know what the acromion process is, you tap acromion over there on the left-hand side, and you can see the acromion turned green. You want to know what the scapula is? That's the scapula. Would you like to know where the humerus is? That whole thing is the humerus. Where is the greater tubercle? Why, there's the greater tubercle, right? This is all a part of your Connect lab. You already paid for it, so you may as well use it. When we get to muscles, I'll show you there's a really fun thing that you can do with this. In the meantime, we're moving along. We're learning the appendicular skeleton. Now, with this video, you may want to stop it after a certain amount of time and go over to the images that show the actual bones against that blue background, right? So the pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle is the scientific name for the arm and the way the arm attaches to the torso. You know, in the evolution of life on planet Earth, not everything has arms, right? So fish are like, man, I wish I had an arm. Fish have got an axial skeleton, but they do not have the appendicular skeleton that we are learning about in class today. So the pectoral girdle is made up of this bone, the clavicle, and the clavicle is your collarbone, okay? Right here, this is your clavicle. By the way, with bones and with muscles, you walk around with your own little study guide so you can work on it, right? So that is the clavicle, and it is attached to the scapula. Now, all of this, starting here, all of that is the scapula. The scapula is a bone that kind of looks like a wing. Here we have the scapula, right? Scapula kind of looks like a wing, and it's got these different parts. What parts do you need to know? Notice how many things are named: supraspinous fossa, infraspinous fossa, all kinds of stuff. What do you need to know? If it's on page 33 under the word scapula, you need to know it. Specifically, you need to know the spine. The spine is this ridge right here. Oops, you can't see it from there. It's hard to see it there. But the spine, if you feel your shoulder blade, the part that you can feel going right down the middle of your shoulder blade, that's the spine, right? If you follow the spine up and out towards your shoulder, you will run into the acromion process. And you can feel that right here, this part of your shoulder that you're feeling, acromion process. So the spine leads to the acromion process. Then there's another process. Here it is, just sticking out there. Well, to the people who named it, it looked like the head of a crow. So they called it the coracoid process, which means looks like a crow. That gives me a reminder that when you're learning the names of all of these things, the most important thing that you need to know, besides what the name is how to spell it. You don't need to know how to pronounce it, not from my class, all right? And so a couple of things. One thing is, just because they sound really sciencey, please don't be too respectful of these names, because they're not that intellectual, these names. People were just looking at it as like, oh, that looks like the thing that looks like a dish. That's the thing that looks like a crow. That's the thing that looks like a spine, okay? So don't be too respectful, and make sure that you say the names out loud or in your head the way it'll help you spell them. You know, like one of my TAs, to remind him that it looks like a crow, he goes, coracoid, coracoid. It's funny. I mean, it doesn't have to be hilarious, like you're going to put it on a TikTok or something like that. It just has to amuse you, and it'll stick in your head, right? The fourth thing you need to know is the glenoid cavity, and the glenoid cavity is lined with hyaline cartilage. If you've been watching the tissues lecture and we were learning about cartilage, there's cartilage at the ends of bones where they are a part of a joint. And this area right here, let me try and draw it with a pen. This area right here, that is where the head of, I am not talking to you, Siri. That is where the head of your arm bone is. So this would be your humerus, and it fits right in there in the glenoid fossa. The glenoid cavity is also called the glenoid fossa. For my answers, I'll accept either one. Oh, by the way, starting in next week's lab quiz, your answers are all fill in the blank, right? There is no more multiple choice. And that's why you need to know how to spell things, because there's points off for spelling it wrong. And it needs to just come out of your head. There will not be a word list. So make sure you know things, and it's fill in the blank. All righty. The olecranon fossa and the head of it. Okay, I don't know where we are. Let me make sure you understand that the clavicle is kind of an S-shaped bone. It's kind of small and shaped like the letter S. Now, that is how your arm gets attached to your rib cage area, by the clavicle and the scapula. Here's what your arm looks like. The upper arm bone is called the humerus. Have you ever hit your elbow and it really hurts and someone says, oh, you hit your funny bone? That's why it's called the funny bone, because humerus sounds just like humorous. Do not spell humorous that way in your lab quiz, or you will get points off, because humorous is spelled very phonetically. Oh, one of the good things about spelling for anatomy is all of the Latin terms are quite phonetic, the way Spanish is. So if any of you know Spanish, or even if you don't know Spanish, things are very phonetic, not as complicated as English. the terms that are derived from Greek words, yeah, they're weird. Okay. All right. So the upper arm. The lower part of the arm is made out of two bones, the radius and the ulna. So radius and ulna, humerus. All right. Scapula, clavicle, acromion process. See, you're halfway there. Let's look at the humerus. One of the things that you're going to need to be able to do is to just look at a bone. Let's imagine there's just this on a picture. I want you to be able to look at that bone and just know that it's the humerus. How would you know that? Well, there are only two bones in the body that have got a definite ball on one end. The humerus is one of them. The humerus has got a ball because the ball fits in that ball and socket joint that is called your shoulder joint, right? Now, the ball that is on the humerus, is it a full ball? No, it's kind of like half of a ball. To me, it seems like half of a ball. I don't know why it's not writing. Pen? There we go. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like half of a ball. We're going to see that the other bone in the body that has got a ball on one end is the femur. The femur is your thigh bone, and that's your hip is the second ball and socket joint that you will need to know for next week's lab, right? So one of the ways that you will recognize the humerus is that it's got a ball on one end, right? Now, that ball is on the side of the humerus that is going to be the shoulder. Down here, this is the end of the humerus that's going to be part of the elbow. One of the things you're going to need to be able to do in next week's quiz is figure out why that does not look like a femur. Because remember, you're not going to be able to say it's the big bone or it's the little bone because this is all online. And in my video that has like comparison of long bones, there's my way of thinking through how I recognize that the humerus and the femur are different bones. All right, so I want you to notice that on the humerus, you need to know 8 different parts of the humerus. Holy cow. All right, well, one of them's easy, the head. The ball is called the head. That's easy. Then we have got a couple of bumps. The bumps up here in the shoulder area are where muscles get attached. And the greater tubercle is the big bump. This is a big bump. And the lesser tubercle is the smaller bump. This is difficult for you to identify very easily in an image. It's easier to do in person. So how will you know how to do it? Well, the way that I would recommend is if you know which direction you're looking at things, you'll know what you should be able to see, right? If you're looking at the humerus from the back, this is from the posterior. From the posterior, you cannot see the lesser tubercle. So if I'm pointing at something, it must be the greater tubercle or the head, okay? If you're looking at things from the front, so this is an anterior view, then you can see that the lesser tubercle is closer to the medial aspect. The medial aspect, because you know that the head has to be attached to the scapula, right? The head can't be pointing outwards, it points inwards to form a joint. So when you're looking at things from the front, you can see that the lesser tubercle is on the front of the humerus and the greater tubercle is off to the lateral aspect of the bone. We're going to start here with the humerus at the beginning of the next lecture.